Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Call. I'm one of the founders of Clonakilty Distillery. We're a distillery in the southwest coast of Ireland. I think, Ken, we're going to be on like 30, 40 minutes, something like that, right? So, what I'm going to do is maybe we'll start with the single malt, do a little mini of the single malt whiskey. I'm going to show you a video of like, it's going to be about 4 minutes. So, rather than sit and with a dry glass, maybe fill it with the single malt. It's a double distilled single malt that we sourced. Of the four whiskeys we're trying tonight, three are sourced and one is ours, which is fully distilled, and all our barleys, everything is ours. So let me present you with the video. Have your single malt, and we shall come back. Can we see that? Oh, here we go.
The story of Clonakilty Distillery starts just outside the town at the Gallyhead Lighthouse, an area of incredible natural beauty. Our fields at the foot of the lighthouse are the perfect environment to nurture and grow the finest of barley, exclusively for our own uniquely Irish single pot still whiskey. Centuries of sea mist, soft rain, and salty ocean spray provide a complexity to the soil that permeates right through to each individual grain. The Scully family, founders of Clonakilty Distillery, have farmed this coastal land for 320 years and 8 successive generations. As custodians of this majestical slice of coastline, we trust our soil, our Atlantic maritime climate, and our untouched water aquifers. At the distillery, here at the waterfront in Clonakilty, we use this barley, in addition to barley carefully sourced from local farmers, to produce our own distinctive new make spirit. Our 3 beautiful copper pot stills have been handmade to perfection by the family of firm of Barrison in Italy, who have a tradition of craftsmanship of more than 100 years. Specifically designed for a triple distilled Irish pot still whiskey, the stillhouse is largely manually operated, just giving Paul, our head distiller, the opportunity to fine-tune and lovingly handcraft each individual batch. The tall neck stills naturally produce an elegant spirit, while the unique mixture of malted and unmalted barley will give the spirit its wonderful complexity that can only be achieved from an Irish single pot still. For cutting our new make spirit, we source the purest of water from our own dedicated well at the Scully family farm. Remote and unspoiled, the water is drawn from deep within the ancient rock formations by our ocean cliffs. Cold, unadulterated freshness, generously gifted by Mother Nature herself. This cutting and cask filling is done on the family farm at our Atlantic Ocean warehouse, 200 feet above sea level by the cliff edge. It is where we mature the finest of whiskies. Pure, clean air, transported across thousands of miles of Atlantic Ocean, providing a freshness unspoilt by human intervention. This is a magical place with a unique and special diversity of climate. Like the ocean itself, it is ever-changing, from the wild Atlantic storms to the glass-calm reflections of a perfect summer's day. In this dynamic, natural environment, a whiskey will only sleep for a short while, instead interacting with the wood and the angels to develop a unique and distinct maritime flavour. Just as the alcohol vapour evaporates from our barrels, The sea salt-laden air permeates through the wood, over time imparting its unique flavour to the whiskey inside. After 320 years of farming the land at the Known, we're used to living on the edge of Europe in a place apart. Now is the time to embark on a new journey, to give something back, to share, to craft spirits that feed the soul. We invite you to join with us on this very special journey.
Okay, so that I suppose gives you a little bit of the flavor of where we are, where we're coming from. We set up the Clonakilty Distillery as a company in 2016, and we started our own distilling, our own single pot still in 2019. So, what you're drinking, the single malt, obviously we had to source some whiskey at the start, like 99% of other Irish whiskey distillers, the smaller ones. And the single malt was a double distilled single malt. As I said, we finished it in Chateau l'Arcadon French wine casks. So I think you're going to get, some of the flavor of the French, the European oak French wine casks coming through. Some sort of honey, floral, berries, maybe on the nose, and dry spices, vanilla, black currants, and in the finish, we do all of it. So when we source the whiskey, we put it right out. So we have this warehouse, as we were talking about in the movie, right at the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. So not as much with the single malt, but I think with the single pot still, you're going to be able to detect some of the notes of the facts. That there's some of the saltiness, salinity that's coming through. But I like this one. This is when I do tastings, and I ask people as they come in what do they like, and if they like a Scotch whiskey, I say this is the one to try because I think it's the closest to being a double distilled single malt, so it's a little bit more heavier, let's say, than some of the lighter triple distilled Irish whiskey, and it appeals, I think, mostly of all of the four that we're going to try. It appeals, I think, to the Scotch drinker more than any of the other three. By the way, any questions, just fire them away. I don't like listening to my own voice, so anybody has any ideas, comments, criticisms, compliments, fire away.
Oh, I like the mouthfeel. I told you last time. The mouthfeel is very rich, and I get ginger. I don't know if you guys get ginger, but I get ginger I get ginger towards the finish.
We finished it at 46 as well, so we didn't. So the single batch, the next one is a 43.6. So this is a 46% proof. I think is also nicer. We don't do any chill filtering of any of these whiskeys or anything like that. So we try and leave as much of the flavor as possible as we can. In the whiskey. I always feel that, the whiskeys when they come out of the cask, so they come out at, let's say, somewhere between 58, 60% ABV. By the time they get to a 40% ABV whiskey on the shelf, so your typical $30 bottle of whiskey, so many things have happened to it that actually strip out the flavors of the whiskey. So obviously you have to filter it when it comes out of the cask, so there's no charcoal in the bottle, there's nothing at the bottom. That's the first thing you do. So you lose flavor there. And the standard filter is about 8 microns. We use a 31 micron filter. So we try to filter the least amount as possible, so more of the flavor comes in. We add water very slowly. When you add water quickly, you create heat. And generally, the bigger guys, obviously, they have so much whiskey going through. They need to add water pretty quickly, get it down to the bottling strength and get it into the bottle and get it out the door. We add water very slowly. So we add water over 2 weeks. So the gentle cut, as we call it, keeps, again, more of the flavor in. I think you lose flavor when you add water very fast. Some of the flavors of whiskey actually they go off. They evaporate. And we've done taste testing of the same whiskey when you add water very quickly versus over 2 weeks, and it does make a difference. Old Elk, the bourbon guys, they also add water very slowly, and they have all the science behind it on their website, or they used to have anyway. We didn't do all the science they did it, but we came to the same conclusion as they did. So we can afford to do it. It takes a lot of space, takes a lot of time, but I think it does make a difference to the whiskey when you add water very slowly. We don't add any coloring to it, and we don't do any chill filtering. Again, chill filtering is one of those things that strips out some of the flavors of the whiskey. So we generally try as much as we can to have whiskeys that are 43 to 46% ABV. So and higher. We do cask strength as well, but at least 43.6% ABV. So again, no chill filtering, nothing to strip the flavor out. Shall we move on to the second one?
No, on
Yep.
anyone, Jason, Grant, do you have anything to add?
I was admiring in the video as the gentleman was like pouring the taste test. He poured himself about 5-6 ounces. I'm like, that guy's on the floor at the end of the day. Testing from pot.
Well, I think we'd all like that job of tasting whiskeys, but if you come in on a Monday morning, and sort of sit down and do a lot of tastings, I'm sure after a while you'd say, I don't really want to do it on a Monday morning, but we do. When we're doing a single cast program and stuff, all the casts have to be selected, and they have to be, and they change. When you have an environment like that in Ireland, where even though we don't have these huge changes in temperature, but we have the atmospheric changes all the time. So the barometric pressure is constantly changing. So
I really like this. Not to interrupt you, but it's got a nice finish. It's got nice flavor. I'm a single malt fan. I'm impressed.
Yeah, no, it's nice. It is a nice whiskey. Yeah, I think we only sort of we released it for like 2 years, and we didn't have enough of it, to be honest. And because we have our own single pot still anyway now, we didn't. It's not part of our core range. So we had it in the US, I think, for like 2 years, and now, as it sells out, we're not going to replenish it. But it's nice. It is a nice whiskey, definitely is.
Where did you source your whiskey from when you were getting started?
We sourced it from a couple of distilleries. We signed NDAs, obviously, so can't really say where, but somewhere in the northeast part of Ireland, somewhere there.
Mm-hmm. I really get a lot of vanilla on the back end. I love it.
A lot, and it's very crisp. The thing I like about it's like a really nice crisp apple. It's chewy. I like it. I mean, I've loved it. We've done tasting. We've tasted this before, and I've said this is a very good introduction to Clonakilty. Yeah.
No, it is. It is good. When we do source our whiskey, and obviously we're not doing it as much now, but we go up and we individually taste each of the barrels and we select them. So we're big enough that they can afford us the time to do it, but we're small enough that we can our own time we have to be able to do that and select them and bring them down.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have in our Atlantic warehouse, then right on the edge, it's about, I'm going to say 200 yards from the ocean. So we designed it so the air vents on the ocean side are at the top of the warehouse, and then the vents on the other side are the bottom. So there's a natural flow of the air coming through. And it's like always, the wind is always blowing there. And even if you're standing outside of the warehouse for like 5 minutes, you can taste the salt on your lips, So it's constantly, the influence of the sea is really going to be more interesting, I think, as you go on. I mean, so we've got like whiskey in that warehouse like 5.5 years now. I think in the next 5 years, we're going to see more and more of the influence of the maritime, of the salt, the salinity out of it than, let's say, in the first 5 years. Let me share.
Really, you can nose this one forever. I mean, it's so yeah.
Yeah, it's really, you were saying the apple. It's a very bright apple. It's very like, It's kind of like Jolly Rancher, but even more like almost like an apple snow cone or some sour apple.
Yeah,
snow
right.
cone.
Yeah. Sour
Very-
apple snow cone. Yeah.
I like the Jolly Rancher. That's a great call.
Yeah, Dr. Hines, do you have any observations of yours? I mean, what's your taste?
I'm learning. I'm a neophyte. I don't pretend to know anything about this. I'm happy to I'm happy to be here. I'm happy you invited me. So I'm listening keenly.
Okay, but can you still come up with your own tasting notes? Do you think you can probably
Yeah.
detect something that you?
Boy, I'm at risk of making a fool of myself. I mean, it smells like candy-ish, to some degree. I don't know how else to explain it.
Any honey at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, that because that's a very dominant note. That's why I wanted to know if you did. Honey is a very
Yes, it certainly is.
That's probably where you get the floral too.
yeah.
I've poured the second one. I haven't tried it yet, but it's a very different nose. Like it
Oh
just
yeah,
the first
I'm on
one's
this.
very bright, and this one is a lot more delicate.
Yeah, the second one is up to now is our best seller. It's the single batch double oak and most awarded whiskey. You can see the slide, right? I'm sure the slide on the. So the second one is single batch double oak. So it's a blend of single malt and single grain whiskey, and finished in these casks, which is Neok, as we call Neok cask, which is the guy who came up with this. He calls it the new era of casks. So it's basically shaved. So the French wine barrels, they've been shaved and toasted, and you can see they're cold. What he calls cold toast. So you can see the picture right on the screen.
Yeah.
So that toasting there goes on for about an hour and a half. So it's toasted really, really slowly. And what you see in the right hand side then is what it looks like, what the bar looks like after the cold toasting. So we
You
had.
might not be looking at the right thing though. I see the island.
Well, hang on now. We're not looking at the right thing. I've moved on. What? Can you not see? Hang on. Let me just. You're definitely not looking at the.
This one's sweet. It's like almost like French toast.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love this. Oh man, I could live here.
Screen. Okay. Do we see that?
Well, there you go.
Have you got? Have you got a? Can you see the Can you see the cask in the?
Yeah.
Okay. So you didn't see that before, no?
No.
Okay, so that's the French wine cask as it's shaved, and then you have the cold toasting, where you can see what's going on the center picture there. So that goes on for like an hour and a half, and then you get on the right hand side, you get what the stave looks like after the cold toasting. And what's interesting is that on the first, so we were just finishing this in French wine cask for the first 4 batches that we did of the single batch double oak, and then after we switched to this type of cask, we got like 2 double golds in San Francisco. It just really made a difference to the whiskey. And I think it's a really, really nice whiskey. And as I said, it's our biggest seller, I think, worldwide. Definitely is in the US.
No, this one is, I'm sure this is a hit in American markets because it augurs well with American palate.
Yeah.
Do you have cooperage on site?
No, we do a little bit. We do a little bit ourselves. So any of the casks. So generally 90-something% of the casks that we have all are coming from Kelvin cooperage in Kentucky. So
Oh,
we would
okay.
pressure test them, and if we have to, for the wine casks that we get in France, we have to take them apart to make sure there's no sulfur in between the staves. So we would take the wine casks apart and put them back again. But I wouldn't, we don't have a cooperage per se, but we have a guy who works in our and makes sure that everything is the way it should be.
So, do you have any types with any bodegas in Spain yet?
Well, we use a broker in Spain for the sherry cask. So the single pot still we have, there's a sherry element to it, and we have
Okay.
so but we don't tie up with a specific one. We have a broker that sends us up casks. We're on a constant communication. We tell him what he wants, and then he sends them up to us, and we try different things, and then we come up. But we don't have a specific bodega. No.
Okay.
So what I think with this one, again, as I said to start, the first whiskey was for the people who were more like Scotch drinkers. I think this one is for people who like their Irish whiskey and who want to try something, I think, a little bit sort of above the standard Irish whiskey that you would normally see on the shelf.
Do you travel with your own glass?
No, this is courtesy of the Marriott in Columbus. So I had only a small hand luggage with me, so I had all my little samples, and I was hoping that they weren't going to stop me the Fort Lauderdale, but they didn't. So I'm all good. I have all my little samples with me. So that's a single batch double oak. This one is not. So in the last 6 months, we've taken out the single malt element of the single batch double oak, and we put in the single pot still, our own single pot still. These samples, the single malt, it's like I think 6.5 years old single malt that we've sourced. So it doesn't have our single pot still in it. But in the stores now in the US, all the new single batch double oak has our own single pot still in it, as well as the grain. So it's still a blend, but with our own single pot still rather than single malt. So what you might have heard in the video, the Michael Scully, the Scully family. So where did the idea come from? It came from Michael Scully, who was has done various different things in his life, but he's a farmer. And I think he was tired of traveling and doing various things, and he wanted something to sort of bring back to Clonakilty. Have you seen? Are the pictures moving?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, cool. So he asked me to get involved with. So the original idea he had was to make vodka and gin from whey alcohol, because he's a big dairy farmer. They produce milk. That milk goes to the creamery, the processing. Part is used for cheese, byproduct is whey, and they make the alcohol from whey. So his idea at the start was to do gin and vodka, but he quickly came to the conclusion that the market is really difficult. There is very little sort of premium to put. It's hard to premiumize gin and vodka, and then he sort of said, "Well, okay, we can do whiskey as well." So one of the things he asked me to get involved, because I came originally from the finance side. But one of the things we decided to do was to try and grow as much barley as we could on the farm. So he added on some fields to the farm. The farm was by the edge of the ocean anyway, but it was obviously a dairy farm. So for grass for the cows, so we added more fields on, and then we started growing barley. So one of the picture on the left is obviously one of our barley fields just after they did the harvest. The picture on the right is an interesting one because it shows two different types of barley. The right-hand side barley, concerto barley, which is one of the most popular barleys for whiskey that in Ireland and Scotland. And on the left of barley is a heritage barley, which was last grown 100 years ago in Ireland. And the Department of Agriculture had this seed bank. and they gave us some seeds from. They gave like 3 distilleries, I think, some seeds to grow on condition that we wouldn't sell them or we had to use them for ourselves. And we started growing this Goldthorpe barley, and you can see why the farmers stopped growing that and moved to the concerto on the right, because every time the wind comes through, it just falls over straight away. You can see there it's less dense, it's higher, it grows higher, so it's a real pain to grow that, and the yield is about 20% lower than the concerto. So from a business point of view, there's only one type of barley you should grow. But it was an interesting project. We distilled it for a whole week in September 2023. So we shut down the distillery. We cleaned out everything, emptied out everything, and did a 100% heritage barley distillation for a week. And we've that put away. So it'll be interesting to find out what the difference in the flavors are going to be. I mean, we've put it to the back of the warehouse, so we're not going to touch it for like 5 or 7 years anyway. But it's going to be interesting, how barley has changed in the flavors of barley changed over the years. So it's one of those little interesting projects. Rather than a business opportunity, it's an interesting project that we could do because we're big enough to be able to do it, but small enough to be able to manage this sort of stuff.
It's at 7:45.
How big is the barley? How big is the barley production there?
So it moved again. You saw see all those brown fields are ours. So I think we have like about 20 to 25 acres, and we have local farms around. So we don't have enough to grow everything that we need. So we contract local farmers around as well to do grow the barley for us. And we grow 100% of unmalted barley that we use for the single pot still is coming from our farm. And then some of the other farmers in Cork, they do the malted barley part of it. So when we go on to the third whiskey, which is the single pot still, this is this malted and unmalted barley combination mash bill.
And is that the Irish Sea there?
That is the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, it can. Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
So between there, next stop is Boston. So nothing in between. So we don't have any pollution. We don't have any. The air is about as clean as you can get. So for good or for bad, we don't have any. It's not Pittsburgh or anything like that. We don't have any steel manufacturing or any of that sort of stuff going on there. It's all very clean. So what do you think of the second one, guys? Any comments? Different from the first, right?
Very different. I actually like it better than the first. I get that nice wine flavor, that wine smell that comes with it that hits on the back of your tongue. Yeah, I could drink a bottle of this in a week for sure.
It's obviously lighter because you have the grain whiskey in it. It's not 100% single malt. So it's a lighter whiskey, but I think it's a very approachable whiskey. There's absolutely, there's no challenge. This isn't a Lefroy, right? There's no challenges for this whiskey, but at the same time, there's a lot of flavor in it. It's not just 40% chill filtered, 90% grain whiskey. It's a lot more flavor in it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The smell is not very complex. It's just kind of it's there. But then when you taste it, I'm getting a lot of that sweet. A lot of like I've got like kind of after it goes to the back of the palate, it's like butterscotch or caramel somewhere in there. Like yeah, definitely.
Yep.
This is more of an easy drinker. I mean, it can be your it's a daily dram.
Yes, exactly.
It's a very good daily dram.
Yeah.
That is what it is. It's like it's been popular lately. The smoked butterscotch. That's what I'm getting.
Yes.
Yeah. good. I like that one. I will buy one of those. That's wonderful.
As soon as you're able to get out of the snow.
Do you have a distribution in Michigan? Do you know?
I do know, and unfortunately, as of yet, we do not.
Okay.
But it's on the list for 25.
Oh, wonderful! Glad to hear it.
So I'm in. I was meeting with our importer today, going through 2025 and our strategy and stuff. So, fingers crossed. We should be in 2025. But we're in Illinois. We're in Ohio.
Okay.
So yeah, but we're not in Michigan. But we're across the border in Canada.
Oh, well, that might work for me. It's about 2 miles away. So
No, we are. Yeah, you're in. So you're in. It's Ontario. Is it across the border?
yeah, it's literally
Right.
3 kilometers, 2 miles away.
Okay. Well, the Ontario Liquor Board, or whatever they call it. What is it? The OLCC is the Ontario. Yeah, they have it. They have the single batch double oak. Yeah.
Well, I'm heading over there this weekend, so I'm going to look.
There you go. They have a little story about the Canadians. They're they're very specific about whiskey and what you can bring in from the U.S. and what you can from the U.S. into Canada. So we have a liquor store in Niagara on the U.S. side. Shouldn't be really saying this on YouTube, but so the specific group of people from Canada, they buy their sort of special editions and sort of single casks in Niagara on the U.S. side. But you have to be like, I think, 24 hours in the U.S. as a Canadian citizen to bring back whiskey. You can't just cross the border, buy your stuff, and just go back again. So those gentlemen know all the shift changes and everything that goes on at the border. So they have the whole thing worked out. It used to be the case that there was buses of these like whiskey clubs in Toronto. They would just take a bus and just go across to Niagara. But then, the customs guys cut all that out. So they have to be a bit more clever now.
It's funny because coming the other way from Canada to the U.S., you just declare it here. And they're like, okay, they haven't charged me duty. And I was here for 2 hours, about 7 bottles of whiskey. Yeah, okay, we're supposed to charge you duty, but just have a nice day. They never charge.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work the other way. It's really difficult. Canada's like, I always, as a joke, I say it's easier to get whiskey to North Korea than it is to Canada. Even when our whiskey is accepted in Canada to be listed, so we have to send sample bottles of it, and they test it, do all sorts of stuff. But the amount of paperwork you have to fill out just to send the bottle to the lab in Toronto is like unbelievable. So it's a tough market. But anyway, the single batch double oak is definitely there.
Excellent.
Okay, should we move on to the single pot still?
Yes. So obviously the single pot still is what we started off thinking we were going to do in 2016. We first distilled it in May the 2nd, the 3rd, 2019. And we waited until this year to bring it out. Now, obviously, Irish whiskey, it becomes whiskey after 3 years. The problem with single pot still is it takes the longest to mature. So you have grain whiskey is pretty quick. Malt is not as quick as grain, but single pot still it takes the longest to mature. And Teelings have brought out their single pot still. And they said it themselves. They brought it out too early. They brought it out after like 4 years. And the first couple of batches of the Teeling single pot still, you can taste that is really, really young. Their batches subsequent to that are much better. So they said themselves, look, we brought it out too early. We were sort of cognizant of this, so we waited as long as we could. What you have there is probably somewhere, 4 years, 9 months, 5 years, something like that. And the guys decided to finish 30% of it in Amontillado sherry cask. And we had different sort of, we took in, PX casks, different sort of sherry casks, and the Amontillado we felt would work the best of them all. And this is a 40% malt, 60% unmalted barley mash bill. So the 60% being the unmalted gives you, I think, an awful lot more spiciness to it than you would, if it was the other way, not even if it was the other way around. So I love the oiliness, dude. I think one of the things that I like about single pot still is there's an oiliness to it that you don't get from a single malt, definitely not from a single grain or from a blend. And that's definitely one of the first things that I get when I taste it. We do a 120-hour fermentation, so we do a secondary fermentation. Again, single pot still in Ireland, a lot of the bigger distilleries, they would have a 70-hour fermentation. But what we found with a 120-hour fermentation is that it eliminates a lot of the sort of off notes. So it makes it easier to distill it when you do a 120-hour fermentation than if you do a 70-hour fermentation. You're reducing the risk of getting the funky notes in it that you may try hard to then cover up with some sort of finish. So by having a 120-hour, you don't need to do all of that, and that makes it much easier then for a distiller to make his cuts. What are we thinking?
This one is a little herbaceous, a lot of green apples. I mean, you can tell it's fresh, very fresh, crisp, just like the others. But this has more herbaceous notes. What do you think, Grant?
Yeah, I thought we weren't going to beat the last one because I really liked it. I absolutely love this one. I get like cinnamon right there. I mean, almost like that kind of big red gum like cinnamon, but that's just that herbs coming through. I don't think it's necessarily cinnamon. It's but that's, I like a lot of the Campari, really kind of bitter herby things, and so I think that's like I love this. I'm literally looking it up right now. Like, where can I order it? So I love it. Like, I'm like, is this gonna be my gift to my vendors and stuff?
Very rarely do I finish a bottle in less than a month. This I finished. Me and my cousin were here, and we finished this bottle. That bottle was gifted to me by Patrick, and then we got another one from Benny's. Believe me, we ran through it, and then he took half my bottle. So.
But they have it in Benny's now, do they?
Cousin ordered it online because he ran through my bottle.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, because Benny's, I think you're taking it in this month, but I wasn't sure if it's hit the shelves yet. But anyways, yeah. Okay. Well,
Is this in Florida?
This is in Florida. What part of Florida are you in?
I'm visiting. Well, I'm in Chicago, but I want to know. I'm visiting my like best whiskey friend moved away from me in Florida. Sorry, and it's a different whiskey friend. But moved to Florida, and I'm going to visit him in January, and I'm thinking that this is the one I'm going to bring to share with them because it's very I just think it's interesting. It's a little different. It lives somewhere between Irish whiskey and single malt, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, no, it is. I think good to hear everybody, likes it. We're pretty proud of it. Obviously, so the guys did batch 2. So this is batch 1 was your tasting. The guys did batch 2. They said the batch 2 is better than batch 1. So it's a thing. It's going to be better next year, and then it's going to be better the year after. It's just a thing with single pot still. Obviously, if you're talking about single pot still, you're talking about Redbreast 12. My favorite single pot still is other than Clonakilty, obviously, is Blue Spot, and the Green Spot. They're all the single pot stills. So this is what we're trying to get to. So I think we're on the right. I think we're going in the right direction anyway, for sure.
Patrick, can you explain to me the comment about the oiliness? Is that a flavor? Or is that a texture that you can pick up on?
No,
With it?
yeah, it's. I think the oiliness comes from it comes from the cuts. And it comes from the fact that it's a single pot still. So obviously, when you're putting in an unmalted barley in with the malted barley in, and then you're fermenting it, and obviously you're distilling it, and then you take your center cut. That cut will put in or take out the oiliness in the whiskey, depending on how wide that cut is. So that's what I'm saying. That the guys do these what they call the manual cuts. They don't do it. It's not a machine or a computer that's doing the cuts. So they decide themselves exactly, what the texture of the actual whiskey is going to be, and I think that's where the oiliness comes from.
Okay, it's a texture. It's the texture of it, or
Yes.
is it? It's not like a subtle flavor like an olive oil or something like that.
No. It's the texture of it. It's the
Okay,
texture.
all right. Okay.
Patrick, my cousin is listening on to this one. He says he got it from Caskers.
Oh, you got it from Caskers. All right, okay.
Yeah.
We have our own online store in California. Probably has the lowest price. I think it should be $49.99 or $52.99 or something like that. There, so that's probably the lowest price online. I don't know how much you pay for Caskers, but they may add a few more bucks to it than our online store anyway.
82.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! I shall say nothing. Our online store is no, it's definitely not 82.
No, because I just opened it for him to taste, and then I thought he'd just have a dram or two. He ran through the
He went a little bit crazy on it, did he?
Yeah, then I'll show you. And then he sent me this bottle. I'll show you 1 minute.
I think this one's a little lighter than the single batch. It's I thought the single batch was a little more complex and a little more kind of balanced better. This is I like this, but I'm looking for that single batch when I get there. What you got, Kay?
Oh yes. That's it. That's what it looks like. Very generous of him to spend $82 to send you another bottle. I give him that. So that's a single pot still. We, as I said, batch 2 is coming out now, so that's going to be our main product going forward. Basically, we started doing a little bit of single malt as well. We did our first distillation of single malt, I think at the end of last year. So we'll probably do about 10% single malt going forward and 90% single pot still in the distillery. We won't do any sort of peated malt or any of that sort of stuff because it's very hard to actually get away from peated malt in terms of that, that stays in the system and it's impossible to get rid of it afterwards. So you can't really shift from peated malt to malt or single pot still afterwards. And B, the single malt still has to be sent to Scotland to be peated. So we would wait anyway, in any case, for it to be 100% sort of peated in Ireland. There isn't any. So there's a few of the Irish distilleries have done peated malt, but sort of Irish, Scottish peated malt, not really 100% Irish.
Yeah, peated malt is a lot of labor. It takes a lot of labor, especially if you're switching from peated malt to doing, unpeated. You have to do the complete wash. I mean, it's a hard labor. It's just like doing rye whiskey here in the U.S. and then switching to bourbon because it creates a lot of sludge, and peat leaves a lot of uh, the
Yeah.
yeah.
You have to complete. I mean, you theoretically you could do it if you're doing your shutdown, your annual maintenance. You could like do it, for the last run, and then just clean everything out with acid or something, so you wouldn't have any of the flavors of the peated malt left in it. But there's other people do it better than we would probably ever do it. So everybody stick to what they're good at.
Should we move on to the podcast?
So the port cask and the single batch double oak. So these two started sort of life off the exact same way. So they're the same sort of blend, except that obviously the single batch double oak went into the French wine cask, the shaved toasted, cold toasted red wine cask, and this one went into port pipe, and so I would say, Ken, you were talking about, what the American palate would go for. I think when people say to me they're bourbon drinkers and they want to move to a Clonakilty whiskey, this is the one that I say they should try, which is the port cask, because I think you get an awful lot of the fruitiness coming out of the port casks, and I think that suits maybe the bourbon palate, a lot. You have this sort of ripe peaches and spices, but
Grant here is the bourbon champion, so let's hear from him. Yeah.
So I'll keep quiet then and let somebody who knows what they're talking about speak up.
I'm going to need a minute. I'm processing.
Obviously, bourbon, because you're using virgin American oak, you're going to have an awful lot more tannins, right? So I'm not trying to create this sort of tannins that you get from a bourbon. I'm talking more like the sweetness of it more than anything else. So let's say, Grant, this is my question to you. Would you agree to me then that of the four, that if you were to take a guy who never had Irish whiskey, a bourbon guy never had Irish whiskey, that I'm saying that this is the one that you would suggest they would try as a sort of a way in to the Irish whiskey world? That's the point.
Maybe this or the second one, the double oak. I mean, just the real, overbearing oak and vanilla, and I mean that's what everybody gets different things out of, and then it's which bourbon. But I would agree with that.
I would go with the single batch because that gives me that feels more like a gateway to bourbon than this. This is because bourbon drinkers, I mean that has nose and mouthfeel of bourbon. This has mouthfeel of bourbon but nose of finished whiskey.
Yeah. Okay, that's a fair point. Yeah.
I was going to say the second one as well because like the sweetness of the corn and the bourbon, I thought really blends well with that double oak. I thought there was a little bit more of a bridge there.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. However, and I think it's just missing, it's not a vanilla and it's not that's just bourbon is just American sweet corn, bourbon, vanilla.
Yes.
This is good.
I'm looking forward to all my bourbon friends seeing how they're going to react to all these single malts, the American single malts that are coming out, because obviously, they're proud American bourbon drinkers, but when the American distillers come out with their single malts, are they going to start moving towards the single malts, or are they going to stick with their bourbon?
I really like, what was the one out of Seattle?
Westland.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I enjoyed that.
So Patrick, what's happening is west of Nebraska, people are taking in, as in American single malt is catching traction there, west of Nebraska. east of Nebraska, the Corn Belt, there is a lot of it's mostly to do with personal affinity because there's a corn growing. I'm sorry, I'm drunk. It's
Corn growing.
corn growing belt. So I think people tend to lean bourbon mostly to support their local farmers, and basically they're kind of supporting their. And then you move Pennsylvania and eastwards, rye's catching up big time.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
So the middle America, if you include Texas and then Illinois, where we are, Minnesota, it's mostly bourbon. And then you go to Colorado and westwards, I'm seeing a big traction. I mean, the American single malt is gaining a lot of foothold there. And the east, I mean, yeah, bourbon, but rye is slowly creeping in and taking the van. I'm getting to becoming a big fan of Pennsylvania rye. The pear rye is so good. I mean, from Stoll and Wolf, and then Liberty Pole and Dad's Hat. The rye is really a lot of texture, a lot of complexity to it. Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why I like the last one. I've been getting more into ryes lately, and it's got some of the spice like the last one does. This one, what's really interesting to me about this is I feel like when I'm going to drink something that's finished in a port cask, like I know what I'm going to get, right? I'm going to get raisiny, that wine kind of raisin, but I'm not really getting that with this. I think it changes the flavor, but I'm not getting that really intense like I would normally get in a port finished something.
yeah. Obviously, it's all cask dependent, and because they're such small batches as well. I've been in the distillery, and we've just opened 2 port casks right beside each other, and the whiskey's been in for the same length of time, but they're just completely different. You're getting different notes out of it and everything, and we're doing because we do smaller batches, so each of those batches might be like 4 or 5 different casks, just dumped at the same time and vatted at the same time. So
I think for you, Patrick, if you look at the Minnesota, and I think for you'll probably do. I mean, Clonakilty will really do good on the West Coast.
yeah, our biggest market is Oregon.
Oh yeah, I guess as well, because Midwest is going to be a very tough because it's the fealty to the bourbon, and it's very hard to break into. But if you're looking at anywhere on the West Coast, California, Washington, and you pretty much the same market that appreciates American single malt.
Yeah, Sean Scully, so Michael's son, he lives over in Oregon, and he does very well over there. He was when we launched Clonakilty in Massachusetts. So Sean was there for a while before we went over to Oregon, and I was asking, well, what's the difference between Massachusetts and Oregon in terms of selling? And he goes, first question they ask in Oregon is, what's your story? Who are you? What's your story? Tell me about your distillery. And first question in Massachusetts, how much does it cost? So different attitude, whole different thing. We get on. That's why, as one of the reasons we do so well in Oregon. People are different there. They want to hear the story. They like the authenticity about it. Like the fact they can go to the distillery. Anybody from the US that we meet, we always give them a free tour. We say, look, if you've made it all the way over to Clonakilty, then we don't expect you to put down $20-25 for a tour, right? We'll give you the free tour. So they like that sort of thing. Other states, it's more, well, okay, how much does it cost, and how much margin can I get, and what can I sell?
No, Massachusetts is Scotch drinkers' paradise. I mean, basically, Massachusetts and the most of New York is mostly lean Scotch. I mean, purely out of, as you rightly said, it's basically to flex.
Yeah, we do well in New York, but upstate New York. So not really metro, but just upstate Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse up there. Where for a lot of people have said to us, upstate New York, it's all, it's old. There's not so much money there. It's dying. This sort of thing. Stick to the metro area. But we got a lot of love upstate New York.
Everyone's got money for booze, man. I mean, they live out of their car, but they drink.
Yes. That's true. They always say that for when the recession comes and stuff, like companies like Sephora, they do very well, because ladies want to buy some lipstick or whatever just to feel better, And I think there's a certain element to that with booze as well.
If you look at the thin stocks, they do better when in bad times and good times. The good times you celebrate with your whiskey, bad times you drown your worries with.
Exactly. But someone made a comment to me today. One of the guys that I was meeting, his observation is that during COVID, everybody was open. I think because people had more time, obviously, everybody was open to trying new things. And now that the whole, that's gone in the history, people are going back to what they were drinking before COVID. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I think some people tried
No,
stuff.
no, it's very true. Especially here in the Midwest, you see people during the COVID, they just wanted to get drunk and they were open to everything. I've seen that in tasting. Now, yeah, I think the main reason a lot of people have not showed up is because it's not bourbon. I'll be very honest. Because it's very in Midwest. The big problem is to try and educate people to something new. They're very anti. I wouldn't say anti-Scotch, but they're not very open to try even rye for that. And Grant will back me up on this. I try to push ryes and different whiskey experiences, but people go back to their pappies and hoarding of what is that, Blantons and stuff. So
Yeah, the Wellers.
Yeah, sure.
Also, I think during the pandemic, we had a little bit. We weren't like doing anything, so our monies that we're spending on, like extracurricular activities, we could spend on trying something new and going down the aisle at Benny's, going on. Like, man, I'd spend 45 minutes in Benny's at least on just the bourbon aisle because I had nothing else to do, and I'm like, all right, well, I haven't had this one yet. Let's go. Like,
yep. You weren't spending any money on holidays or any of that sort of stuff, so
right.
You get some more money anyway.
No, I'll give you a simple example. During COVID, even something like Remus is one of the finest bourbons. I consider Remus Repeal Reserve one of the finest bourbons released in America. During COVID and soon after that, people were rushing to get it. Now it's sitting. I mean, it's gathering dust on shelves in almost all stores. People's back to their regular stuff. Jim Beam, not Jim Beams, the Buffalo Trace stuff and stuff from Russell's and stuff. So even within the bourbon category, there's a lot of. I mean, it's not like everyone's selling.
Yeah, no, I think bourbon's going to go through some tough time. I mean, I think generally the whiskey industry is going to have a difficult 12 months.
I would say difficult 48 months, but I don't.
Yeah, well, definitely 12. Anyway, let's see what happens going forward. But yeah, no, the next year is going to be tough. Yeah.
One good thing is a lot of people are hoarding up, worrying about tariffs. So if that really comes through, then things are going to be nasty.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody yesterday who's launching a tequila. And I was asking, when are you going to get the first delivery into the US? He goes, yeah, maybe end of December, 1st of January. I says, well, you know what's going to happen on the 20th of January, so you better get it across the border before the 20th, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So, yeah, it's going to be, we're living in interesting times, as they say. So,
man, that's good.
You were mentioning the online store. What is that online store? I can't find it.
Well, the best, simplest way is to go onto our website, clonakiltydistillery.ie, and then select the US option, because it'll give you a Clonakilty
shopping, select USA.
Yes.
Got it. Yes, I am. I am 21.
You're 21, just about. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Shout yourself.
Oh.
So I'm. Oh, here we go. All right, I'm looking. I haven't honestly. I'm gonna. Oh yeah, 49.95. So I was 4 cents higher. So it's 4 cents cheaper than I said. All right, cool. So buy 100 of them, you're gonna save $4. There you go. So there's an interesting one, just as an aside, if I'm going down to the site. So we did a Bold City. So in Jacksonville, there's a Bold City Brewing. We did a really nice sort of. They sent some barrels over, red ale, Irish red ale barrels over to us, and we brought them back. So Manifest Distilling in Jacksonville gave the barrels to Bold City Brewing. We put an Irish red ale in them, sold that, and then they sent us the barrels over. So that's an interesting one as well. But yeah, so it's 49.95, so a little bit cheaper than the 82. So yeah, I think we're nearly done, guys. Thank you very much, Ken, as usual. Thank you for helping us organizing everything. We're glad that everybody got their little care package, as we might call it. Hopefully, you have a little bit left in each of the minis. If you have to. I mean, the 50 mLs each, so sure you haven't drank it all. But no, look, it's been great having the conversations with you all. I think, as with all whiskey, everybody will have their own favorite, and that's fine, because if we all like the same thing, then there'd be one whiskey on the shelf in the bin or whatever it is. So it's good we all like something else, something different.
Thank you very much for the samples and for hosting this. Appreciate it.
No problem, Chad. As I said, I was watching every day. I was checking where the hell that box was. So I'm glad you got it 3 hours before.
Thank you again. Yeah, this has been awesome.
All right, cool.
Great whiskeys.